It's now time to have the conversation or child adoption in Kenya. Quite an interesting conversation. And I think the very first time I heard the word adoption was in a movie, a Nigerian movie.
We are back.
Whereby
The
you're
Nigerian
wondering,
yeah.
why are you mistreating this child? Amefanya nini? And then later on you come, oh, you're adopted.
Yeah.
No wonder.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many conversations around that. And these are real things that are happening, by the way. So today we have Clive. He's not a visitor here. Actually says ni mwenyeji.
Yeah.
You can see we are even wearing
Imagine.
navy blue.
Yeah,
It's
I missed
almost
the memo
like
today.
Today you missed the memo. Most of the time I always miss the memo.
Yeah.
Yes, but we're excited. It's the Low Logs today, and we just want to understand what is everything we need to know about child adoption in Kenya. I know we have a lot of questions, you know, the age appropriate to adopt, what's the process, who is eligible to adopt. So there are so many questions that we'll be handling this very day with Clive, and he's going to open our eyes to demystify all that we need to learn. So if you have any questions, you can send them to our WhatsApp number, that is 0708 222 323. Let us know also where you're watching us from, and you can also share the link with a friend or a relative that you feel will benefit from this conversation. We are live on YouTube at Hope TV Kenya.
Right, and we delve and dive straight into our conversation this morning. A brief introduction of the guest.
Again,
and even as you are introducing yourself, you could also help us understand the difference between maybe adoption and guardianship.
Okay.
Yes.
For starters, my name is Clive, Clive Shitawa. I'm a lawyer by profession. I'm very happy to be here again talking about adoption. The first time I was here, I was talking about something different. But all the same, the whole issue about adoption is not very familiar to us, especially we of the African context. Yeah. But it's something that is now growing up, and many people are coming up to adopt. Many people are accepting that. The culture, society is also accepting adoption. The difference between adoption and guardianship. Now, you can look at these through different windows. Yes. The first window is to look at the type of relationship that is created. In adoption, the relationship is permanent. That means that the child moves to a new home, they become a child of a new parent permanently. Meaning that the biological parents cede their rights on this child and can never again claim. When it comes to guardianship, actually guardianship is more closer to us Africans, especially when you look at the cultures where a parent or perhaps an adult could not bear children, unfortunately, and they get to an age whereby they go and take a relative into their home and make them their child. So that is not adoption, although in our setting we may look at that as adoption, it is not. So what would happen in such a case, you would find that currently that child, that relationship is temporary. That is to say that at some point this child can make, when especially they attain the age of majority, where they want to belong. Now, when they decide that they want to belong, you know, depending on how also the guardian would have, you know, done their things, they may decide where they want to belong. But that relationship is not permanent. That is what we must put into consideration. Then you could also look at the consents. Consents are required in both situations, whereby we're talking about the consent of the biological parents and and both parents. If there's only one parent, the other one must also consent. If there's only one parent that is, you know, moving ahead, especially for adoption, putting up a child for adoption, the other one must consent to it. Without which then that adoption may be difficult. Then you can also look at the type of the process, the legal process. Adoption is seriously, and I should say, it must go through the court. That is not a requirement with guardianship. You could just simply do an agreement when it comes to guardianship. I think that's the major difference between the two.
Right. And I think it's important for us to now know, what is the process of adoption? How does it look like?
The process is intricate.
Okay.
It is quite long, and for obvious reasons. The reasons are, let me start from the reasons why we must go through this process. One, to safeguard the rights of the child, to avoid child trafficking, to avoid commercializing the whole act of adoption. And before we came up with these laws, it was very common for people to come from the West with, photographs here, taking a picture here, a picture there of children. Kidogo, there is an agreement and they move away the children. So the laws have been created internationally and also locally, and I think Kenya has very robust laws when it comes to the process of adoption.
Yeah.
So the whole process starts with an orientation and inquiry. That is to say that the prospective parents must come to the children's department and make known their intention to adopt a child. At that point, they will be given an orientation on the whole process. Now, if they are satisfied with that, then we shall move to the application. They then apply to the children's department. Now, once they have applied to the children's department, they'll give reasons to why they want to do the adoption. And once they have done that and the children's department is satisfied, then it will send out what we call a home study. A home study is done at the home of the prospective parents, those who want to adopt, to make sure that it is a conducive home for this child, to make sure that the child is not going to a place where, in most cases, children are adopted because they're coming from a situation that is worse, and they're expected to get to a better situation. So you're not going to take these children, for example, they're still minors, to a home where we have drug abuse, we have, violence and those kinds of things. The whole thing revolves around the best interest of the child.
Okay.
So what happens is that after the home study, there'll be then the training and preparation of these parents. They must be, told about, what is anticipated of them with this child, what the laws require about them. After that, there'll be presentation or the submission of the home study report. Remember, the social worker went to do a home study. This, after that, we shall do then the matching of the, the children available for adoption and what the prospecting parents wanted. For example, they could be looking for a boy, they could be looking for a girl, they could be looking for a given age, they could be looking for, particular characteristics or traits in this child. So now that is when we do that matching. Now, if the matching is done, then there'll be we move to a place we call the approval. The approval is supposed to look at the report that was submitted by the social worker. It's supposed to look at that and see that the home the child is going to is good, and then there's no objection to the adoption of that child. If there is an objection, then there is likely to be an issue that must be resolved before we move on to completion. Now, issues that could bring up objection is, for example, where we have two parents, one deciding to put up a child for adoption, but the other one has not consented to that. So that one is likely to object to that. Remember, you could also come up with children also have that right to object. To that,
the children who are being...
especially if they are of an age where we think these ones know what they want. They have that right to object. Objection could also come from somebody who has done a study of you. For example, you may find people have traveled here as foreigners. They have come, settled here. But where they came from, there are issues pertaining to, they have criminal records and those kinds of things. So somebody could raise that objection at that point, having done a background study of these people. If there is no objection, then the children's department will give the prospecting parents what we call a no objection certificate. At that point is now when we move to court. Now, at the court, the prospecting parents must file what we call an adoption petition. Once they have done that, a date will be set for hearing. Now, that gives the court, which is now the hearing, it gives the court a basis to do an investigation through that hearing. Now, the people that are likely to attend that type of hearing, of course, the prospecting parents, the social worker, the child, if the age allows. Yeah.
Okay.
And at that point, when the court is satisfied, it will give an adoption order, which is now taken to the Register of Children, and then a certificate is issued, and that adoption is registered.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. You know, we have discussed about someone who wants to adopt.
Yeah.
This is parents who want to adopt.
Yeah, true.
But then again, there are parents who want to give up their children
True.
for adoption. Rarely do we hear that, because many a times when you hear of adoption, you only think of children's home, children who are in those homes, children who maybe are orphaned.
Yeah.
But then again, here you have parents and they want to give up their children for adoption. What is the legal process, and especially in our context in Kenya?
A parent who wants to give up their children for adoption must, first of all, approach the children's department and make known their issue. Then they must consent. Remember, I said that if one parent agrees to it, the other one, if one parent decides to put up a child for adoption, the other one must agree to it. Once they have done that, that shall be followed by survey of where these children are likely to go, and then a court date and a court hearing, and that is majorly the legal process.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. And now talking about the biological parents who maybe have decided, you know what, I want to put up my child for adoption. What rights maybe do they have regarding that?
Okay, an interesting bit. Now, you see, the first you must appreciate that when you're putting up your child for adoption, you're ceding some rights from that child, because eventually you will have no rights on this child when the adoption is complete. But from the onset, you have a right to legal representation, so that you also understand how the process is going.
Yeah.
You have a right to consent. Every parent has a right to consent. Then they have also a right to be told, a right to check to know the background of the parents that are adopting. But that doesn't mean that gives you room to follow up afterwards and say, you know, he was our child. A case in example, although we know there was no follow-up, but we know of a case of a football player who became very famous, played in the English Premier League, but was an adopted child somewhere in Italy. So that tells us that sometimes these children can spring out to be very important people, and then you start living with guilt. You must prepare yourself to that effect, that once you surrender that child and the adoption process is complete, then you've ceded those rights.
Wow.
And because this is law logs,
Yes.
we must touch on matters, laws, regulations, rules. And there are some which are very pertinent, not that we are overlooking others, but there are some which are very critical in the adoption process. So for the sake of our viewer who may be thinking of going that path, which are some of the critical laws, regulations, and rules should they bear in mind as they start this process of adoption?
That can be looked at from, first of all, the legal framework. There exists in Kenya a very robust, as I said earlier, legal framework. We start from the Constitution. The Constitution at Article 45 recognizes the importance of family. As you know, it notes that a family creates a social order in society. It's a very important, fundamental part of the society. When you move to Article 53 of the same Constitution, that's the Bill of Rights, you discover at Article 53, Sub-Article 1, that there's a recognition of, children and children having rights, if you look at the D of that part goes to, protection of children from abuse and many other things. So if you look at Article 53 again, Sub-Article 2, now brings in that the rider, that everything that is done concerning a child must be to the best interest of that child. The best interest of that child means that despite everything, the child should be, the objective, every objective must point towards the best interest of the child. So given that, we have the Constitution, which speaks very well about
Yeah.
protection of the child. Apart from that, we get the Children's Act, which has a whole part speaking about adoption. The Children's Act tends to also just borrow from the Constitution that everything being done to the child must again be to the best interest of that child. But in addition, there are other areas, Education Act, which mildly comes into it because, again, if this child is going to be adopted, we're looking at the education as a right. So it will mildly touch on the child. But there are rules, the procedure itself, for example, where you start from the process of visiting the children's department all through to the court, and then that order being given is a whole legal process that a person must understand that there are very serious checks for you to do adoption.
Okay. And how does the law now ensure that the child who has been adopted, that everything pertaining them, the laws, the rights are basically protected? How does the law ensure that?
Now, for example, if that child were to travel outside, if a child were to travel outside, they must always be accompanied by, details of travel documents must flow from the parents.
Yeah.
So whereby, and that's why we do registration of persons. Birth certificates, nowadays we say that after a month from birth, somebody can acquire it.
Yeah.
This is all to protect a child at the point whereby their rights are being infringed upon should, the process of adoption begin, so that a child is not taken away before they go through the due process. Those children have also a right to object. To object to an adoption.
Yeah.
Besides adoption, besides that right, they have also a right to attend court if they are of age. And if you go to Milimani here, you would see sometimes the courts invite the children to come to court, and the courtroom would be created in a way that it favors them, so that the magistrate can have a one-on-one with the child to make sure that the process is all towards the protection of the child. So essentially what I would say is that children are protected. Yes, we may have had an issue, one or two, especially along the coast, of children, being misused through adoption. But generally, I think the law is very robust. The enforcement perhaps may be the issue.
And so that is the adoption process. If we can touch briefly post-adoption process. Now, this one is now, we are looking at a successful process. We can call it a successful story, adoption story. So what is the post-adoption process to ensure now that the adopted child is now fully integrated into this family in terms of succession, as you mentioned, and also the name?
Okay. I'll touch on succession as a whole, a whole small topic aside. But let me start with the post-adoption. The fact that you've taken a child and adopted them into your family does not stop there. Doesn't mean that now it's hallelujah, amen, let's run away with the child. There is now, the social worker will keep on coming to do terminal checks to make sure that the child is fully integrated into the family. And that is not just important. That integration is within the confines of the law. So that, again, that you can integrate someone into a whole issue that is not related to the rights of the child. For example, integration to an environment that is away from Kenya. We have seen child soldiers. And perhaps that could be an issue still in Kenya. When you look at the areas with the banditry, you can see sometimes children with, So it becomes a whole issue. But the most important thing is to know that post-adoption, there is still government, the big brother watching over you. It is not done. So those periodical checks will still happen. The courts may need some reports annually about that child to know how. The file is still open in courts. So until the age when it is done to the satisfaction of the court, the satisfaction of the Children's Department, that all is done. It is not a one-day finish, go, and you're happy.
Yeah.
You go to Maldives. No?
Yeah.
So it's definitely quite a process.
It's quite a process.
Yeah.
And long. And you can see why it is long.
Yeah.
Sometimes people may make noise about the whole process being long, but you see, what we need is to make sure that this child is getting to a place that is secure.
Yeah.
As the Constitution puts it in Article 53, Sub-Article 2, to the best interest of the child.
Amazing. And I think definitely we have even more questions regarding this particular topic. I see we are almost, actually it's around 8:30. So this will be a good time to take a little breather, but when we get back, we'll definitely be having more questions on this particular topic. It's very interesting, and we are getting a lot of information that we need to know. If you have any questions, remember you can send them in through our WhatsApp number 0708 222 323, or also on our SMS line, which is 20933. We'll be back shortly after this break.
Hope TV is where you look and live, with an excellent selection of the best Christian programming consisting of local and international content of inspirational stories, talk shows, Bible commentary, youth, health shows, children entertainment, contemporary gospel music, extended times of worship, live broadcast, news, movies, drama, Christian ministry programs, and so much more. Hope TV is another quality service from Christ is the Answer Ministries, with over 45% of authentic and credible local content every week. Hope TV is a sister station to Hope FM, Kenya's leading Christian radio station, with footprints across the country. Tune in to Hope TV, where you look and live.
Sio siku ya kung'ara tu, ni siku divine, ni siku divine, ni siku divine. Sio siku ya kushiba tu, ni siku divine, ni siku divine, ni siku divine. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angels' voices, oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born. My name is Reverend Pitson Legrand, and I want to wish everybody, on behalf of Hope Media, Hope TV, a very merry, merry, blessed Christmas. God bless you.
Welcome back. This is Hope at Dawn, being Monday. It's the matters to do with law, legal matters. That is what we are tackling this morning. And to help us navigate the conversation, we are hosting Wakili Clive Shitawa. And today we are looking at adoption in Kenya, and picking it up from where we left it, Clive, the issue of inheritance and post-adoption. How does it go?
Now, one thing I said when we started is that an adopted child cedes the previous family cedes all rights, and this child moves to a whole new family and becomes a child just like the biological children in that family, and cannot be discriminated against. So because this child does not qualify to inherit from the previous family, that means that the inheritance is totally with this other family. And when now we look at the law of succession in Kenya, is that all children must be gifted adequately. I'm not saying equally, adequately.
Yeah.
The reason for adequate, therefore, means that if this child came into this family, then they must just be, they should not be disinherited. They should inherit just like any other biological child in that family.
Yeah.
So succession, the whole law of succession tends to protect these children as well. So do not assume that because there is a biological, these are my biological children, or that one is not, this child is not biological to my parents, and then therefore they do not deserve when it comes to inheritance. That is not true. They all deserve equal treatment.
Right.
Succession is adequate, not just make sure they are adequately, provided for.
Yeah, and I'm also curious to know who can give up their child for adoption. Are there any rules or checks that need to be made before someone says, I want to give up my child for adoption?
Okay, who can give up their child? I think we should have looked at this like, okay, let me answer it from your perspective. Who can give up the child for adoption? Anyone can, for as long as they meet the criteria that has been set around it.
Okay.
You shouldn't be doing this for, should I say, commercial purposes. A child is not a property for sale.
Yeah.
That is why we're saying for the best interest of the child, not the best interest of the parent. If you commercialize it, it has now left the child and gone to the people going to make profit out of that. So that is what we're trying to run away from. So any person qualifies to put up the child for adoption. I don't know if I can create another angle to say something about who then who then qualifies to adopt. Yeah. When it comes to adoption, the story changes. The prospective parent must be 25 years and over, but not above 65 years old.
Below 65.
Below 65, above 25.
Yeah.
But even though you do not qualify to adopt just because you fall within that bracket, the child you're adopting must be 21 years younger than yourself.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. 21 years younger.
What we are saying here is that we don't want a 25-year-old man to go and adopt a 17-year-old girl.
Right.
I hope you get.
Yeah, now we get. Yeah.
So that you get into. Okay, there are things that happen in the West, and we don't want them to find their way into. So that is one. Two, another person that qualifies to adopt is one. Okay, why the age 65? The age of 65 is looked at if you're adopting a child that is, say, 2 years old and you're 65, we're also expecting this child to go through an education. Now, if you look at life expectancy, after 65 does not give us, that's reality, does not give us a lot of room for stay. The Bible puts it at 70. So that means that you're going to leave this child with a dilemma of carrying on after you have left. That is the reason why we look at 65 as being the cap. Okay. Who does not qualify?
Yes,
who does not qualify? You do not qualify to adopt if, a single parent, a single female parent does not qualify to inherit a male child.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The same applies to a single male parent. I hope you understand why we're looking at that.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
of
yeah.
We've seen how
Yeah,
pedophiles.
exploitation. Yeah, yeah.
And again, we don't want to discriminate and say just men. Yeah, again, the Constitution says if we said men alone, we'll be discriminating at Article 27 of the
Yeah.
Constitution. So we don't want to discriminate. We want it open. And therefore, if a single male parent does not qualify to adopt a female child,
Yeah.
the same should apply to a lady in regard to a male child.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is very much advisable if, one wishes to adopt, that they are bringing a child to a family that's
A family
nuclear
setup is very
Yeah,
important.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And you see also in a family setup where we have a husband and wife, the intricate issues of masking yourself are rare, as opposed to when you are single. People can live 3 different lives when they're single.
Yeah.
But when you have a wife, or you have a husband,
Yeah.
there are those checks within family
Yeah,
itself that and that's why perhaps we insist on having a family as
Yeah.
opposed to having having it to a single
Yeah,
parent.
yeah.
However, that just to put it clear, that it is possible for a single male parent to adopt to adopt a male child.
Okay.
What I know, you may not be told, but the threshold is very high when it comes to those checks.
Okay. Okay. All right. And I think the question also, we posed this question off air, and we are asking. We have gone through this, or even we are starting, and we want to adopt. Maybe we have earmarked a particular child from this family who has decided to give up their child. Can we give a token of appreciation?
Okay. Let me just start from the overriding objective around children.
Yeah.
Around children, the overriding objective is to the best interest of the child.
Yeah.
When you start bringing in tokenism, you start bringing in commercialization of this whole thing. Therefore, I'm sure that even pinpointing and saying, I just want that child from that family, may also come with a lot of questions. Why? That's why we say it is easier to report to the children's department to do that selection for you than you yourself going to, because then it raises those questions and the possibility of child trafficking. Because then these traits, everything has been done by yourself. Giving tokens may not, it may exist, but again with a lot of caution.
All right. And maybe now looking at the age, the age appropriate for a child to now be put up for adoption. Let's say a child is a newborn baby. At what point are they, eligible to be adopted?
A newborn baby is available for adoption at 6 weeks.
Oh, 6 weeks, okay.
That lapses at 18 years. Yeah. That's an adult, you can't adopt an
adult. You cannot adopt an adult.
Yes. And is there a preferable age, or it's just any is okay?
When you come, you come with your, remember I said you come with your traits and you place them before the children's department as a prospecting parent. It is them to look out for what you're looking for. And then they'll tell you this is available, this is available, this is available. Or the child we have is this kind, this kind, this kind. They have this type of history, this is why they are here. Remember, some of these children end up in children's home because they were picked. No one is claiming them. But because they were picked, the first point of delivery is usually you deliver them to the police stations. So we also need a report from the police station to confirm for a child that is coming from such a background that there is no claim on them. No one has claimed them. So that would be important. Essentially, when you're looking at the whole protection around the child, is that at the end of the day, it's all about the interest of the child. That is what you must know. The best age of adoption, that is a reserve, of the prospecting parents. Not necessarily, there's no, for as long as they fall within that bracket, 6 weeks too. Yeah,
To 18.
to 18.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
People, okay, perhaps let me just speak about preferences. Usually people prefer to bring up children. So they would prefer children that, are within the scope of, 2 years, 1, 2 years,
Yeah.
because then you can nurture them in accordance to your
Yeah.
family traditions.
Yeah.
When you get somebody that is gone, you may have issues of sometimes being reminded, after all, I know where I came from.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And now that you have mentioned that earmarking a child for adoption from a particular family may not be so welcoming, then how or where should we take children for adoption?
Okay. There are only 2 institutions here. One is the Children's Department, and the other one is licensed agencies, which again must work with the Children's Department, because the whole process of adoption will still go through the Children's Department all the way to the court and then the Registrar of Children.
Yeah.
So you cannot put them elsewhere. You have seen people okay, people on the street say, hawa watoto nimechoka, nafanya nini, naacha nini, or somebody has left children. Or they, that is not the process. To the Children's Department or to licensed agencies. Perhaps to speak about a vice that is in society, whereby, because of living conditions, or the cost of living, some people find it very difficult to cope with their own children. And sometimes even from violence within the family, you find that it is complex, that somebody is unable to carry on with children and they feel like it has come to an end. Perhaps then we can advise that it is reasonable that you approach such departments as opposed to, seeing the things we see in media, like, the life of children being affected.
Yeah, and I think this would be a good time to just dispel and talk about the misconceptions that maybe surround adoption, especially in our country currently.
Yeah.
If there are any, please let us know about them.
Okay, I may have spoken about a bit of them, but let me just mention one. When your child is adopted, please forget about, I have my child in that family. That's not your child.
Okay.
Yeah. So do not say that my child was adopted. My child lives in the Italy. No. That child is no longer yours.
Yeah.
So do not assume that after adoption you still claim rights on that child. That is one. 2, when a relative takes a child, because perhaps they didn't, unfortunately, they were unable to have children, and they take up a child to live with that child, it's not adoption. That is not adoption. Adoption must be a process that goes through what we've already explained, through the courts, all the way to the registrar. If it is not that way, that is simple guardianship, where somebody is staying with that child to help that child meet their daily needs, perhaps the basic ones, education, shelter, and those kinds of things. That is not adoption. Adoption is not entirely a bad thing, especially where you have come to the end and these children would rather be with someone else than put them on the streets to do what sometimes we see in those streets here. Do not put your children to that extent. If perhaps they could be taken up by someone else for a better life. I know it is a hard thing, especially because of the intimate relationship. The intimate relationship, you can also talk about the sentimental attachment we've also put on children. But children also, the best interest of the child. What would it be? Staying with you, living with you on the streets, in culverts, or with someone that could put them through a better life. So that is something that people need to start appreciating.
All right. I think also you can help us from a legal perspective, from the legal front, some of the common challenges experienced during the adoption process and how potential parents can be able to address the same to ensure it's a seamless process.
One of those, the biggest challenge is the process. the process is tedious
Well, yeah, it is, and long.
and long.
Yeah.
But again, for the, the overriding objective under children.
Yeah.
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 So the best way to do this is to start early, be patient, look out for legal advice, so that, as you can see, it is intertwined into so many other things.
Yeah.
It touches on government, you come to courts, various departments of government. So that invites the prospecting parents to start the process early and appreciate why it is slow.
Yeah.
That is one. Two, the other difficulty is when you have a parent that thought that by adoption you will still be, bringing aid to the family throughout because you have their child on the other side.
Yeah.
So that is a challenge that prospecting parents may have, adopting parents may have, because the African socialization is such that if my child is staying with my aunt or staying with a relative who's able, then I should be getting some returns. That is a challenge.
Yeah.
Remember, you have not taken your child for some labor somewhere so that you're expecting a salary at the end of a month.
Yeah.
You have ceded your rights on this child.
Yeah.
You have no claim
Yeah.
after adoption. Yeah. So I think those are the major challenges around that area.
Yeah.
And then commercialization of it. Like you think that because my child is being adopted, I needed this type of this amount of money. I should have been paid. When the process is going on, you think that at the end of it, there are millions coming through the process, and then you discover at the end that is not supposed to be the issue. And therefore you want to raise an objection. So you find that the reason why you're putting up this kid for adoption was not for the best interest of the child, but for your own economical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So we have even such cases happening where people demand, like, I want compensation for doing this.
Yes.
So is it that there is actually no compensation that is supposed to be given, or what really happens with that conversation?
It may happen silently. And I wouldn't want to say that the law appreciates it. Because what was the mischief that the law was trying to cure? Commercialization of adoption.
That's true.
That is the mischief that the law is attempting to cure. So if it is done in the background, it could be there. But is it a process that you're going to mention to the courts that I've given 2 million, so this process must go through? That is neither here nor there. The courts would be interested in the process. They would interrogate the background. Did the social worker go? Are they still going? Do we have the annual reports? Do we have the police reports? If we have all those, then the courts are satisfied and they'll carry on with the adoption. But the commercial or the monetization of that is not in the interest of the justice.
And actually, even I believe, I'm not a lawyer, but I think that is actually a red flag. If it is proved in court that there was such, that could be a red flag.
And essentially because we that live in Africa know, especially if you look at West Africa through North Africa, if you watch if you're watching TV, you'll discover that we have about 8,000 Africans entering, Europe on daily basis. About 8,000, not to mention the Americas, just Europe alone, on daily basis. How many children are in that process? I think that. And when these people get there and they cannot take care of these children, where do these children end up? I think that. So when we have these questions of we do not want to commercialize
Yeah.
the adoption process. It is because we are for the best interest of the child.
Yeah.
Because commercialization, where there is money, people tend to go for money as
Yeah.
opposed to the rights
Yeah.
of the victims.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe you can talk about the importance, or rather, is it even advised for one to work with a lawyer through the adoption process? How significant is having a lawyer in the process?
Very true that a lawyer is very important in this case. A lawyer is extremely important because you can see how intricate it is,
Yeah.
the rights that are protected here. And if you, on a layman's basis, you may not be able to know the process all the way, whether you are the prospecting parent or the biological parent.
Yeah.
You may not know about all this, the process, the procedure. Now, at the court, you ought to file a petition. It's called an adoption petition. Now, that's where now lawyers become very important, because then this drafting of these documents, so that they capture the legal frameworks that we have around adoption, is a work that is merely a preserve of the lawyers. The social worker and the children's department will only come to present, to present their reports to the courts. They do not do the process for you. So theirs is to carry out the study, bring the report, produce the report before the court. But the actual bit, the procedure of going through the court all the way to the registration of children, it is very important that a lawyer be involved.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you may stay on those corridors 5 years, and by the time you get into the child is an adult.
And now you can't take
Now you
it.
can't take the child and you have to go back if you still wish to.
Yeah. Lawyer Clive, thank you so much, even for accepting the invitation this morning.
Thank you.
We don't take it for granted. Asante sana.
Yes.
How can we be able to get you?
Now, thank you very much for that. First of all, I work with the Agimba and Associates Advocates. We are off Ngong Road, behind the Junction Mall, along Riara Road. Our email is info@agimba-advocates.co.ke. My number, I can give it here. 07 12 050 936. 07 12 050 936.
Thank you.
Karibu.
Wow, I've gotten to learn so much.
A lot.
So
A lot.
much. I am beginning to love law logs.
Another life you want to be a lawyer.
My dad wanted me to be a lawyer. He really wanted me to be a
Always
lawyer.
go back.
And as a child, my excuse was, no, I don't like the wigs they wear. I want to style my own hair. I don't want to wear the clothes they wear. But anyway, thank you so much, Bwana Clive. That was very eye-opening. We've gotten to learn so much about adoption in Kenya. And I believe to all who are watching us today, they've also gotten to learn a thing or two.
Yes.
And remember, you can reach Mr. Clive right here, and the number is 0712050936. I'm very good with numbers.
Good numbers.
I had to show you that.
You're bragging. What?
Yes, that is 0712050936. If you need any questions answered, you need any help, and also at the email, that is info@agimba-advocates.co.ke. Have I gotten that right?
Very right.
All right. Yes, it's been wholesome. I've really enjoyed that. Gigi is wondering. I'm a cram sanga.
Imagine, I'm wondering, surely. But you need such.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, that's why you are here.
As women, we are just naturally helpers.
You are here helping us with the numbers and all. So thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Wakili Clive. God willing, we'll be doing this again, same time, same place tomorrow morning. And being a Tuesday, it's one day at a time. So, of course, you need to look out for that. Of course, we will be having an amazing guest sharing their story tomorrow.
Yes, and people should know that we were live on YouTube. So if maybe you missed any bit of this interview and maybe you're just tuning in now, you can definitely go on YouTube and catch the whole interview live. So if you have any questions regarding this topic on adoption in Kenya, then you can get all the information that you need on that very YouTube link, and that is at Hope TV Kenya. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Beatrice Watare, and I'm so glad to have done this with you. Thank you for keeping us company.
Thank you so very much. My name is George Gishoro. God willing, this time, same place tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Bye-bye for now.